Nobody can hear you.
As my wife once told me, she said, "Oi, the credit card was stolen. What's going to be?" I said, "Baruch Hashem, this is a bracha. I'm sure the thief is not going to spend as much." There is a question. It's a legal question all over the world, and of course, it's a Torah question. A couple gets married, a husband and wife get married, and they are a unit. They're not just a couple; they're a unit. There's actually a famous statement of the Rogatchover, the great Torah genius, the Rogatchover Gaon, who said that there's a law when it comes to a certain offering known as the flower offering, the korban mincha. The flower offering cannot be brought by partners. It has to be brought by an individual. That's the law. Yet there is a set of laws concerning a wife who was questionably unfaithful, known as the Saita, and she has to bring such an offering, a flower offering. And the flower belongs to the husband, but the korban actually has to belong to her as well. It appears that it's coming from partners. The husband and the wife jointly own that sacrifice. Tosfos asks, so how could it work? The general rule is that flower sacrifices have to be owned by an individual. It can't come from partners. So how could this questionably unfaithful wife bring such a flower offering which is owned by her and her husband? And the Rogatchover explains that a couple are not partners. A husband and wife that get married, they are a single union. They are a single entity. They are not partners. Partners cannot bring a flower offering, business partners. However, or whenever two people happen to own the item jointly. A husband and wife, however, are one unit. They're one. They're a new entity that is created. And therefore, it's considered that one entity has brought the sacrifice. Okay. That's a bit of marriage advice. The legal question is, let's assume the husband works and the wife is a stay-at-home mom, keeping the house nice and clean, taking care of the kids, making sure when the husband comes home from a tiresome day of work, he has what to eat. The husband is what we would call the breadwinner, and the question is, so does all the finances legally belong to him? And the wife has to ask him permission whenever she buys something. And the question is not only if the husband is the only breadwinner, even if the wife has a job, and perhaps she brings in a greater revenue than her own husband, we're going to see that it could be that the husband is considered the financial, not just the financial advisor or caretaker, but it could be that he has the legal ownership to all finances in the marriage. And this is what we're going to explore. We're going to see some fascinating things. And of course, it all begins with this week's parsha, when the women are going to donate to the Mishkan. And the question is, can women give tzedakah? You knock on the door, the woman of the house opens the door, she gives you a nice check. Is she authorized to give you that check, or even to take out cash from the wallet? Is it her money? Can you accept it? Okay? And this is the discussion tonight, and it begins with number one. Number one is a pasuk in this week's parsha. There are two sheets over here, and it looks long, and it is. It is. Get yourselves comfortable. This is no. It's going to be all right. Don't worry.
You have two in there?
So I have to get home sometime soon. What? Sometime too. I'm just kidding. This is here you go. Okay. So we begin with number one, this week's parsha. Daber b'nei Yisrael, the God is telling Moshe, I would like the Jews to build a tabernacle, a mishkan, a house in a temporary home in the desert, but it's going to be made of exquisite materials, the finest rocks and stones and wools and linens. And where's that coming from? The Jews are going to donate. Daber b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jews, v'yikchu li truma, let them offer and donate to me. Truma is a donation. May ace kolish, from every man, asher yidvenu liboy, from every man whose heart will be generous. Tichu es trumas, you should gather the donations. So this pasuk, when God's speaking to Moshe, it's very clear. It's to the men. May ace kol ish. It says, speak to the sons of Yisrael, with that itself seems to be masculine. And then it adds again from Kol Ish, every man. It could have just said, Me'es Kol Asher Yidvenu, from anyone who's generous. What's Ish? It almost sounds like God is negating the women. What's going on over here? Because we know that ultimately in Parshas Vayakel, when the Jews donate, the women will donate, and we'll see at Ramban, the women donated first. So let's begin to explore with number 2. For those that are used to these shiurim, so we try and build up literally from the Bible, from the Chumash, to what the sages say in the Mishnayos and the Gemara, and then we move on to the medieval sages, and things start to get really hot when we get to the contemporary and the contemporary questions and the big rabbis of recent times. Okay, so number 2 is a Gemara in Baba Kama, the very end. Tana Rabbanon, there's a Braisa. Loikchin min hanoshim kli tzemer. You want to buy something from a woman, okay? So a woman's selling something. She's selling something from her house. It's a garage sale, let's say. She's selling stuff. Who does it belong to? So let me tell you the general rule. The general rule is like this. When a woman gets married, she possibly already has prior items that she owns. Everything she brings to the marriage, her husband gets his hand on them. The possessions are divided into 2. One of them is called the possessions that she literally hands over to the husband. They get evaluated at that time, at the time of the marriage, it's $1 million fine. He's going to give back that exact amount. If they get divorced or if he passes away, she'll get that money from his estate. That's one type of possessions that it now belongs to the husband. He will just make sure she gets back equivalent worth when they separate. So if the value goes up, it's for his benefit. If it decreases, then it's his loss. The more common arrangement are possessions that the wife still owns. She owns throughout the marriage, but the husband is what we call oichel the peiros. He eats the fruits. He has the right to use it. So she can't sell it. He has the right to use it, but ultimately it's hers. She owns the essence, and therefore if he dies or if they divorce, then she just takes it the way it is. If it went up in price, it's to her advantage. If the price decreased, it's her loss. It was always hers, but he has the rights to the peiros. The first group of stuff, he actually gets the item itself. He just commits to pay her the amount of its worth that it was when they married, if later on, God forbid, there's a divorce or he dies. Fine. That's the stuff she owns prior to the marriage. Now she's married. Biblically, once they're married, the husband owes her a few things. The husband owes her clothing. The husband owes her sustenance, to take care of her, food, the like. And he also owes her to spend time with her, physically and also emotionally and mentally. These are written in Parshas Mishpatim. Sher ksus and oina. She'er is actually food. Ksus is clothes. Oina is from time to time to physically spend time with her, etc. Those are 3 things the husband owes her biblically. What does he get from her? So biblically not too much, but the rabbis were masakin. They made an enactment that if she works and makes money, it goes to him. It goes to him. Ma'aseh yodeh labaila, it goes to him. If she finds an object, it goes to him. She receives a gift. If she receives a gift, it's hers, but the husband's allowed to eat the fruits. But if she finds something or she works, he actually gets the essence of the item itself. These are all rabbinic enactments. Okay, so here's the question. If a woman is selling an item, she needs to have permission from her husband. If it's coming from her house, her husband owns the finances of the home. That's the general rule until we'll see some exceptions throughout our discussion. But let's go to number 2. Taner Rabbanan loikchin mina anoshim. You're allowed to buy from women kli tzemer b'Yehud. If you're living in Yehud in southern Israel, you're allowed to buy wool from women because it's the type of item a husband isn't comfortable to sell. You can assume the woman is selling it on behalf of the husband. Kli pishton begalil. If you're in the Galil, you could buy linen for the same reason. We assume the wife is doing it on behalf of her husband. Not wines, oils, or quality flour. Those are items the husband would sell. Why is the wife selling it? It's almost like she got some of it from the kitchen. It belongs to the husband, and she's illegally trying to quietly pocket some money. You can't buy it, it's theft. V'loy min ha'avadim, you can't... Yeah, when it comes to wool and linen grad salesmen, it depends what they're selling. It depends what they're selling. If a woman is standing outside her house selling a bottle of mashka, you can be sure that she got it from her husband's collection, okay? It depends what she's selling. It depends what she's selling. V'loy min ha'avadim, not from servants. They're also suspect. V'loy min, not from kids. Kids also, where they found something from their parents. Abba Shol says, Mecheres isha barba v'chamisha dinner. A woman's allowed to sell whatever she wants to get 4 or 5 coins. Lasa is kippa l'roisha, to make a covering for her hair. Because if her husband would definitely want her to do that, it's as if she has permission. Now, the kulon sha'amru lahatmin, if a woman ever says, quickly take this and hide it, then I don't care what she's selling. I don't care what she says she's selling for a shait or this or that. If she tells you that the item I'm giving you, quickly hide it, obviously that raises suspicion. Also, you can't buy it. If it's really hers, what's she nervous about? Fine. Then the Brisa continues. What about tzedakah? What if a woman wants to give tzedakah? Whose funds is she giving? As far as we know so far, all funds in the house belong to the husband. If you don't like that, stay to the end. Don't worry, we'll see some exceptions. But the general rule is it belongs to the husband. So when a woman's giving tzedakah, the only permissibility to accept that money is to assume that the husband instructed her, or the husband's okay with it. So gaboy tzedakah collectors, loichin mehen dover muat. You could take a small amount from a woman. A small amount, you could assume she's giving you $20, $50, or maybe now it's more than that. Then you could assume the husband's fine with that. Avaloy dova meruba, something which is sizable. Something which is sizable, you have to be concerned. Whoa, wait a second. Are you authorized to give me this? It's your husband's.
Giving food is something different.
That's for fun. Vahabadodin, okay, this is, that's those that squeeze olives. Let's leave that. Jump 2 lines. I'm going to save you here 2 minutes. Jump 2 lines. The middle of the line, Ravina. We're in number 2, 3rd line from the bottom, Ravina. The Gemara says a story. Ravina was the last of the Amoraim. Iklo lebei Mechuzah. He came to the city called Mechuzah, a city in Bavel, in today's Iraq. Also, Noshed the Benim, the women of that town were so excited to see him. Ramu Kameh, they cast before him Kavli Vishiri. Kavli are chains and Shiri are bracelets. They threw their jewelry in front of him.
Rockstar.
Kabul Minayu, exactly. The rabbi comes to town, all the women. It's like Yosef HaTzadik when he went through Mitzrayim. All the women stood and then they threw because they wanted him to marry them.
You don't have to
so
be
they
in a
threw
band.
Exactly.
Like that today. Yeah.
Well, people still throw stuff at rabbis, but it's not jewelry. It's not jewelry, I can tell you that.
Yeah, not that either.
Why do you think a rabbi always has a hat? He's always taking off his hat. It's always on his head because he knows that it's going to be empty anyhow. Kabil Mahiri, he took it. So Amalei Rabba Toisfa the Ravina. Rabba Toisfa told Ravina, what? Don't you know the Brisa? Gaboy, tzedakah collectors, you could take from a woman something small, but not something big. Now I would assume if they're throwing jewelry, it's gifts the husband gave them. It's theirs. Yeah. Everyone agrees a husband has to give his wife food. So he gives her a fancy plate, a plate with tons of meat. She's not hungry. There's a poor man at the door. Would anyone raise a question if she could give all that meat to the poor man? Of course she can. It's hers. So the Gemara could have said over here, perhaps that this was their jewelry, it was theirs. You could say maybe the husband gave it to them only on condition they would use it themselves. It's like an Indian gift. I'm giving it to you, but I'm still holding strings only if you use it. I don't know. What we do know is what the Gemara's answer is. Amalei Ravina answered. The Bnei Mechuzah are wealthy community. Jewelry for them is nothing. Dover muad ninu. The husbands don't care if the wives throw bracelets. They're very wealthy, and bracelets are hin. No, it's not a big deal. So This is actually brought in halach. If you open up a Rambam in the laws of Tzedakah, and we have the Shulchan Aruch in number 3 in the laws of Tzedakah, where we have this Gemara is codified in halach, as it says. Join me in number 3. Gaboy Tzedakah, collectors of Tzedakah, ein mekablan, cannot receive from the women or from avodim or from kids, elo dovrim, or something small. You can assume the husband's okay with that, but not a dover gadol, not if it's big. Sheches kosoi gozel. It's an assumption. Sorry, that if the wife is giving $100,000 check, suspicious. It's her husband's money, you don't know that he gave the okay. Oy gonov, or stolen mishel acherim. It says from others, but it means from the husband. Now, the Rabbi Yosef Kair is writing the Shulchan Aruch. Here he quotes from the Rambam. How much is a dover mu'at? Hakol lefi oishra bailim vanusim. It depends. It depends on the family. It depends on the husband. It's all relative.
How are you supposed to know if you're
The gabbai is supposed to have a
list.
You're supposed to know who you have your research.
who is talking to.
You got your research.
Right.
You know, that guy.
The Shnar is not. So this statement comes from the Rambam, and the Rambam got it from the story of Ravina with the jewelry that we just saw.
In a wealthy town.
Continues Rabbi Yosef Kaira, and here he's quoting from the Rosh. Veheni mili b'stama. When can you take a small amount when you know nothing except for the fact that the woman's giving you $20, $50, $100? But if the Baal is meicher, what if the woman's giving you $5 and the husband is screaming from the living room, don't you give that? I feel a kosher also that even a penny you can't take from them because it's the husband's.
Yeah.
But if you don't hear the husband screaming, you could assume that a small amount he's okay with.
She has authority.
Anything large, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't just say it's a question. He says there's a presumption that this is a shady business. Okay, so this is the general rule. If you learn the Gemara, you learn the Rambam, the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, the general rule. So based on this comes number 4, the Meshech Chochmah. Reb Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, in Latvia. Before the Holocaust, the city boasted 2 great rabbis. One was the Rogachover, he was the Rav of the Chassidim, and Reb Meir Simcha was the rabbi of the Mishnah, of the Litvaks, the non-Chassidim. The 2 of them were incredible geniuses in one city, and actually once by a wedding, they had a fierce debate. But the debate, they were just shooting sources at each other. This Meshech, Sukkah Daf 22, they were just shooting sources without any. If you were standing by and watching, then it would be hard to follow at all what they were saying. They were going back and forth.
No, you also have to understand why this is a question to this and why this is a question to that.
Yeah.
And how that answers it.
They were experts in every source they mentioned. They knew exactly what the other one was getting at. But at the end of the conversation, the Reb Meir Simcha threw out the last source. He threw out a Tosfos somewhere, and the Rogachover was quiet.
Oh, we learned this once.
And then they left the wedding. At 2 in the morning, the Ur Sameach gets a knock on his door. He opens the door, he's like rubbing his eyes. The Rogachover was there with his attendant, and the Rogachover throws out another source, and with that he turns around and leaves. And that was it. So Rab Meir Simcha wrote a sefer on Chumash called Meshech Chochmah. And in number 4 he says, he wants to know why in number 1 the Torah says that it was asked from the men to donate. What about the women? So he said Pirush in number 4. Me'ez kol ish from the men, not from the women. Because Me'isha... Oh, wait. It says from all the men, but not from all the women. Some women could, a single woman. But it can't say all the women, because any woman that has a husband, ein mekablen gabei tzedakah dor v'merubah, you can't take a big gift. Like it's brought in Baba Kama Daf Kuf Yutes. So based on what we just saw, says Reb Meir Simcha, now you understand why God's speaking to Moshe. He says the men can donate, not the women. Because I'm not asking for buttons or things like that. I'm asking for gold, silver, copper. It's big gifts, it's expensive. And the rule is that the collectors wouldn't be able to take it.
No clawbacks.
Okay. If you look in number 5, if you look in number 5, this is actually from Parshas Vayakel. When it came to the actual donations, the women did donate. Oh boy, did they. It says, Vayavoyu ha'anoshim al hanoshim. The men came with the women. Kol nedivlev, anyone that was generous. They brought chach, nezim, tabas, chumas. All of those are different types of rings on different parts of the body, on your ear, on your nose, and other parts. Kol klizov, all of gold. So the men and the women brought the jewelry. V'chol ish asher heinif tnuf azov l'Hashem. Raw gold came from the men. So if you read the pasuk, it says the women and men brought jewelry. Jewelry came from both. Raw gold came from the men. What does it mean the men came al hanoshim? Should have said together with the women.
What is it?
Women don't give shkalim when it comes to
Machzor shekel, no.
These
It's only.
you don't have them in mind.
It's a minig that they do.
It's a minig, but it's not. Just like you give it to your kids. There's a too hard. Can't do it.
Go ahead.
The men came, ultimately when it came to the donation, the men came on top of the women. The men came on top of the women. What does that mean? There's an old word that although Parshas Terumen Tetzaveh comes before Kisisa, where the Egel Azov takes place, there's a major debate between Rashi and the Ramban. The Ramban, going with the Zohar, believes that the parshas are in order, and the Eibishter had the idea of building a mishkan before the Yidden ever sinned by the golden calf. Rashi learns like the Tanchuma that that's not the case at all. That the Yidden first sinned by the golden calf, and then the Eibishter gave the mitzvah of the mishkan to atone, and the parshas are actually out of order. That's how Rashi learns. First, that Truman Tetzaveh was given after the Yidden sinned by the golden calf. Rashi's opinion, like the Tanchuma, the Ramban famously disagrees, and based on the Zohar, etc. So, when the Jews were donating for the Mishkan, they were repenting. They became Baalei Tshuva. The women never sinned, so they were tzaddikim. What's greater, a tzaddik or a Baal Tshuva? It's a machlokes in Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan versus Rabbi Vo. Rabbi Yochanan says a tzaddik's greater. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Vo that a Baal Tshuva is greater. So that's why it says the men came on top of the women. The men were above the women because the men had sinned and now they were doing tshuva. The women had never sinned. You know, a woman's never wrong, right? But it works to her detriment. The man, because it's wrong, he can apologize, and then the Baal Tshuva becomes greater than the tzaddik.
Bob, you hear that?
The women paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. The women paskin like Rabbi Yochanan that the tzaddik is.
Wait, who passes like Rabbi Yochanan?
The man
Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yochanan. Baal Tshuva is greater.
Baal Tshuva is greater.
That's why we're greater, because Baal Tshuva are greater.
Rambam passes.
Right. The women though paskin like the tzaddikim are greater. So it's better not to sin.
Who's that?
Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara, so it's better not to be wrong in the first place. Now, if you actually look in the Ramban in number 6, the Ramban says, what does it mean the men came on the women? The Ramban says, when it came to jewelry, who do you think was the bigger donor, the women or the men? The pasuk speaking about jewelry, the women donated more than the men. He says in number 6, the Noda b'tachshitin, donating jewelry, is more common by women. And the women had all types of jewelry they took from Egypt. And they came first with Bo Tchila, he says. The men who happened to have some jewelry, they brought also with the women, but the women came first. And that's what the men came following. Al Anoshim means following the women. So the Ramban says the women actually donated first. Because by the jewelry, if a man had to look, maybe he found something. The women had it all right in front of them, right, a whole jewelry box. So the women actually donated first. If you look in the Sforno in number 7, Sforno, the great doctor in the 1400s, he lived in cities in Italy, and then ultimately we said he moved. He went to Bologna and he had one meal of spaghetti bolognese, and he said, I'm staying here forever. And he lived the rest of his life on Bologna.
In Bologna.
In Bologna. He must have had the non-dairy version. Say somewhere there. He says in number 7, what does it mean the men came on the women? It means they came with the women. You know why? Because the women on their own couldn't come, Because they wouldn't accept their gifts. Im ha'anoshim, with the women that donated, the men came. Because they needed to be maskim to agree to the gift. Or else the collectors would not have been able to take. And he says, Ein mekablim min anoshim ela dover mu'at. The Sforno doesn't quote the Gemara, but he expects that you know it. That you don't accept from women only something small, because then you could presume off the bat the husband's okay with it. Anything sizable, you really have to verify. So the husbands came with the women to give the green light to verify that it's okay. So that's how the Sforno learns. Fascinating. Beautiful. So ultimately, the women did donate, but the husbands had to be there.
They schlepped their husbands.
The husbands had to be there.
Come with me or you're out the door.
What?
Bob, right?
It's a theft. They have to give it back.
Yes, permission.
Give it back. What?
Can I laugh?
It's not property. It's her son. She made a neder to give it. It was with Haskam of her husband. Elkanah gave the okay. In number 8 is a Rambam. In number 8 is a Rambam. The Rambam, this is in the laws of issues of marriage, where the Rambam delineates the rights that the husband gets from his wife. He also lists the rights that the husband has to give, but that we didn't copy, that we don't want to hear. Here it's all about what the husband gets. And let's read it together, number 8. There are 4 things, shezoicha behen, the husband gets 4 things during marriage. They're all rabbinic. The Eluhe, number 1, Maisi Ader Shelo, your handiwork belongs to the husband. Number 2, if she finds something, it's his. Number 3, even possessions that she owns from before the marriage, or let's say she inherits someone from her family while she's married, she owns the essence of the product, but he can use the fruits. He's the one that gets the use of it. So too, if she dies, he inherits her. The Rambam says, in number Daled, we're in 8, where you see the Daled, Va'oi tiknu chachomim made a takana, that you know why the husband should get her handiwork, because he takes care of her. Marriage has to be a two-way street. Because he supports her financially, if she does work and make something, he gets his rights to it. Why does he have to redeem her if she's taken captive? Because he gets to use the possessions that she does own, he gets to use them, so countering that, he has to redeem her. He has to bury her if she dies, because he inherits her after she dies. It's always a tit for tat. Lefichoch, the Rambam quotes a very important halacha. The woman has to give up her handiwork to her husband because he supports her. What if she tells her husband, I don't need your money, I can take care of myself? Let's say she's making a nice sum of money.
Separate bank account.
And exactly. Im Amr, what if the woman says, Eini nizoinus ve'eini oisa? I don't need you to give me food and clothes. I'll do it myself and I'll keep my own salary. Shoymin lo, we allow her to do that. We don't force her to for the tit for tat. There happens to be a big debate. Once she sets up that it's 2 separate people living under the same roof, can she then retract? What if she loses her job? Can she go back and tell her husband,
I need money?
It's a machlei, because some hold that she can't do it anymore. She lost her rights. Anyhow, the Rambam though says the wife has the right to do this, not the husband. If the husband says, I'm not feeding you and you work and keep your own money, we're not going to, because she doesn't have to work that much. And therefore, he can't pull out that card. But if the woman wants, she can. The women in the desert, Chevron, were living off what? The man, not their husbands. Their clothes grew with them and miraculously were cleansed by the Anon Yaakov, the clouds of glory. So this would be a halacha where the women don't need their husbands.
They could have said.
So their own ma'isi odeh, their own handiwork actually belongs to them. So join me on number 9.
Next page.
The pasuk says in Parshas Vayakel, all women that had a wise heart, they spun with their hand. And they brought different types of wool. Tchelis is wool with a purple, a dark blue color. Argomon is purple. Talas Hashani is red. Sheish is linen. What does it mean that wise women, what does it mean that a wise woman is the one who knows how to sew? The wisdom of the heart. Why is that the wisdom of the heart? What it means is the wise women realized that their handiwork in the desert belonged to them. They only have to give it to their husband if he's supporting them. In the desert, they don't need their husbands, so their handiwork was their own. So when it came to their handiwork, they realized their husbands don't have to come with them. When they brought the jewelry that they got from Egypt, their husbands had to be with them, like the Sforno says. But their handiwork that they did with their hands, their skills belonged to them. Their husband had no rights to any of that because he's not supporting them. So that's what it means. The women that were wise in their heart realized that their handiwork is their own in the desert. And they could bring this on their own accord. Their husband didn't have to accompany them.
You don't have to ask permission?
No.
Where is 9 from?
That's a pasuk in Vayakel. The word that I'm saying comes from a sefer Pardes Yosef.
You don't have to say, can I have my Maaseh back?
No. It's automatically understood. Okay. Now it's going to get exciting because we're almost finished. So far we've discussed, you see in the Psukim, in Truma, in Vayakel, that the Eibishter was cautious about the women donating. When they actually donated, the husbands had to accompany them, this and that. We saw the Gemara, we saw the halacha that if a woman wants to donate, you have to be careful. The Shulchan Aruch Paskin is very clear, only something small. Small or big depends on the wealth of the person, we saw that too. So here we go. First of all, join me in number 10. Number 10 is from the Sefer Aruch Hashulchan. The Aruch Hashulchan was a great rabbi, a Litvischer rabbi. Before the war, he died in 1908. But in the end of the 1800s, he was the big Rav. And Reb Epstein.
Where?
Epstein.
What area?
I don't know the city. Of that. But it's known that although the Mishnah Bruder was also a big Rav, he was much younger. The big Rabbanim in America, they favored the Aruch Hashulchan over the Mishnah Bruder. Reb Moshe Feinstein definitely. They say that because he was more authoritative, the Mishnah Bruder wasn't considered on par of the Aruch Hashulchan. He wasn't. The J.B. Soloveitchik once said that the Mishnah Bruder needed the Aruch Hashulchan to give a haskama to his work, but not vice versa. The Aruch Hashulchan didn't need the Mishnah Bruder to give haskama. There is an interesting debate. If a woman works outside of the house, she has a job.
In Belarus.
In Belarus, yeah, but the city, which city?
Nivhardak.
Navardo. Okay, he died in Navardo.
It was a city in Navardak for a few years.
So he was in Navardo. Okay, so there happens to be a big debate. If a woman has a job outside of the home, she's, I don't know, my mother's a computer programmer. She goes to, yeah. If a woman works outside of the home, she has some business, some skill. There are some achronim who believe she has the rights to it. Because when Chachamim said that her handiwork belongs to her husband, it's the stuff she does at home, her sewing, her time maybe. But by the way, what you have to understand is when the rabbi said that the work that she does goes to the husband, there's a minimal amount of work a wife needs to do to actually support the husband, to help him support her. It was a small amount of wool that she was supposed to weave. That the Gemara talks about. But if she goes above and beyond and does more than that, the halach is the husband still has the rights to that money. But that's if she does it in the house. The question is she goes out of the house and she has a business not connected at all to what's going on at home. There the achronim debate if the husband can get his hands on the money. So number 10 he says like this, Veda, the yesh misha service, some hold that a woman who's busy in business, we don't say masha konsa isha konaba that goes to the husband. He quotes a Mishnah Lamelech, he quotes a Maharit. Ulefize, according to that, if the woman actually has a job that she gets a salary for, it's something she does. Outside, it doesn't literally mean she has to go to an office outside the home. Today, a lot of people work from home. But the idea is what she's doing has nothing to do with household chores. And she gets a salary, and she wants to give big bucks of tzedakah, then it's her money. It's her money. From such a woman who's an entrepreneur, you definitely could take tzedakah. The only problem is it's a debate if really the woman holds on to the cash or the husband has his rights for that as well. So says the Aruch Hashulchan number 10 in the end, Even though this din is not clear who's right, concerning tzedakah, if you're stam getting, the woman's giving you a tip, a big tip, a huge tip, then maybe you can't, it's a machlokes if the money's hers or her husband's, so you shouldn't take it. But he says for tzedakah, which is a mitzvah, you're allowed to rely. Many have asked on Aruch Hashulchan, what's the man talking about? If it's 50-50, if the money's hers or her husband's, then even for tzedakah, how could the collectors take it? It's 50% stolen goods. So there were those who had a big issue with this Aruch Hashulchan. If it's 50-50, I don't care. Well, because it's a mitzvah, therefore it's still 50-50 stolen goods. How could you take it?
Stolen goods, or it's a suffix.
So some answer that. Even if it's his money, maybe he did give her rishus. She's giving $100,000 to tzedakah, right? You have to suspect. If you remember, the Ramban and the Shulchan Aruch says there's a presumption that it's stolen from her husband. It's not for sure. We assume that it's shady, it's suspicious. You got to verify. But there is a possibility the husband allowed her or instructed her, right? One or the other. So it's really a double suffix here. It could be the money belongs to the wife, even if it's the husband's. Maybe he allowed it. So generally, you wouldn't just rely on that. But for tzedakah, you could rely that it's not a 50-50, it's more 75-25. Okay? So that's one thing. One interesting thing is that there's a debate if a woman has a real parnasa, nothing to do with household chores. During her free time, when she could be twiddling her fingers, she happens to have she has a skill, a job, and has nothing to do with household chores. There's a debate. It's a 50-50 in the poskim if it belongs to the wife or the husband. And when it comes to tzedakah, it says, Aruch Hashulchan, you can rely. We go to number 11. Number 11 is a letter from the Noda b'Yehuda. The great Noda b'Yehuda, the big Rav of Prague in the 1700s. We've mentioned him many times. Rabbi Yechezkel Landau. Oh wow, look at that. So we have two Noda b'Yehudas over here.
He's not my blood grandfather. He's my stepfather's grandfather.
His name is Landau, right?
Landau.
Oh wow, there you go. Son after son.
Prague.
Chief Rabbi of Prague from 1713 until 1793. What?
80 years.
It's a big claim. 80 years. He lived a long life. You know, when the Noda b'Yehuda came to Prague, Prague was looking for a Rav. They hadn't had a Rav for decades. Because they had a great man by the name of David Oppenheim, who was a big Rav in Prague. And he died. And for years and years, there was no rabbi. Even Yonis and Eibeshitz, who was in Prague during those years, he wasn't the rabbi of the city. No one could become the Rav of the city. So Yechezkel Landau, he came, the Noda came, and he put forward, and they said, listen, you're a great scholar, here's the problem. Reb David Oppenheim, when he was dying on his deathbed, the community members asked him, Rabbi, if you go, who's going to be your successor? So he said, Reb Meir. And then he died. So they knew that the next rabbi of Prague has to be Meir. So they told the Noda b'Yehuda, you're a great scholar, but your name's not Meir. So the Noda b'Yehuda said, none of you understood what David Oppenheim meant. David Oppenheim was very ill. He was teetering between life and death. He's a goisus, teetering between life and death. The Gemara says most goisusim die. Roiv goisusim die. The community members were asking this David Oppenheim, who should be your successor? They were talking to him as if he's certainly going to die. So he told them, Rab Meir. Rab Meir throughout Gemara is always concerned for the minority. Rab Meir's the opinion that says you don't follow the majority blind, you have to be, there's a minority. He was telling you, why do you assume I'm dying? Because most goisusim die. Rab Meir always believes you have to remember the minority. That's what he meant. He didn't mean the next rabbi should be Meir. Anyhow, whether it's true or not, they liked the Chap so much, they took him as rabbi. So he became the Rav of Prague. The Baal Shem Tov was related to him, the Baal Shem Tov's wife was related to him. And when the Baal Shem Tov was younger, he used to stay by the house of the Noda B'Yehuda until he stopped. He said the Noda B'Yehuda used to take off time from learning to make tea and take care of him. And he said, I don't want to disturb the learning.
He buried him properly.
Yeah. So says the Noda B'Yehuda is talking about a case. You have a woman who, imagine you're in Shul, right? You're selling aliyahs, and all of a sudden the price going up and up, and the hand goes up from the Ezras Noshim. There's this hand that goes on the side of the mechitza. It happens. It happens. Who are you buying the aliyah for? You know, for myself. For myself. Yeah. And so the issue is this woman. There was a woman who gave a big bid. So they asked her, is this coming from your husband? She said, my husband lets. If the woman claims with certainty that the husband gave the okay, can you rely on that? Yes. If she doesn't say, you have to be concerned she's stealing from the husband. If she does say, maybe you should be concerned that she's lying too. So the Noda B'Yehuda paskins in number 11. If the woman says if the woman says that her husband allows, she's believed. You don't have to call the husband. If the woman says, my husband gave me the okay, you could trust her. He says, why?
Because if you calling her a liar.
Well, we call her a thief. If she doesn't say she got it from her husband, we'll say she's a thief.
A thief only if you accept. But the fact that she's offering makes her a liar. No, I'm sorry, let's be correct.
Hold on. The Noda B'Yehuda's argument is, Ein Adam Chayta V'Loi Loi. A person does not sin if they gain nothing. She's not giving this as a payment for something. She is giving this as tzedakah. What does she gain? A bit of covet, a bit of honor.
No?
Not if it's
stolen.
If it's stolen, then she's sinning for no purpose.
Right. Oh no, but she wants to buy a schus like an aliyah or something. I don't know
That's
aliyah.
saying some
She's not getting the aliyah. Oh, but she tried.
You think the aliyah is worth the amount of money people pay? It's tzedakah. The people that stuck the aliyah is just an excuse to get the tzedakah from the person. Yeah?
It makes the person who's getting the aliyah.
No, they're not
better.
buying. No, because if it's buying, how could you sell aliyahs in Shabbos? It's mekach or memker.
Yeah.
Elamai, you're not buying. It's nidren. You're giving a vow to do a mitzvah.
That's why there's some people that say
if
that
it was really buying, it would be a problem on Shabbos.
there's some people that say that anything that you bid, even if you didn't win,
Because it's nidren.
you have to give that money anyway.
Yeah, the Gaboim always say that. Yeah. That's what you're saying. It's funny, the bidders never say that. I've never heard the bidders say that. It's the Gaboim that say that.
You have to pay every single bidder, and that's hundreds.
No. Your highest bid.
Just the highest.
Your highest bid, yeah. All right.
No, fine. So says the Noda B'Yehuda, Umehei teisi tigna mishal ba'ilo litein tzedakah. If she says her husband gave the okay, what do you think she's lying? She stole from her husband just
to give tzedakah.
She's sinning with no. But the Gemara gives a rule: a person doesn't sin if they get nothing out of it. If a person sins, there's a justification. I need to do it. I need this.
The motive.
But stamazoi, it's a sin and you don't get anything. That's saying someone is really corrupt. We don't believe people are, at least not the average person. Still, for a reason, the average person might do. The Gemara says most thieves, roiv ganvi Yisrael, most thieves are Jews. Anyhow, so here's the shaila. Frek the Noda B'Yehuda, if you don't think that she would ever steal for tzedakah, so even if she says nothing, why can't you take a big donation from a woman? The whole vart of the Gemara was the Rambam said, the Shulchan Aruch said, we're worried they're stealing from their husband. I thought we're not worried. How does that make sense? So the Noda B'Yehuda wants to answer that we're talking about that she thinks that it's okay for her to give the tzedakah, but the truth is it's stolen. But if she says she got it from her husband and she knows she didn't, then even in her own mind she's a liar. So that we're not going to be concerned. When she says my husband said it's okay, if he didn't, then she's an outright lie. We're not going to assume that. But if she says nothing, we assume that she has no right to give it, but she thinks it's okay. Right. We think it's stolen, not that she's aware of the theft. That's the chap of the Noda B'Yehuda. Either way, he finishes at the end of the letter. Aval, if she says b'shas mais in the end of number 11 that she's giving b'shlichus of her husband, it seems to me lufum riyah to rishayna at first glance that she's believed. So the Noda B'Yehuda paskins, and this actually accepted the halacha, that this whole concern when a woman gives a big sum, and where's it coming from, if she says she got it from her husband, so her husband gave it her okay, you don't have to verify. You're allowed to take it. You're allowed to take it. And if the husband later comes and denies it, could be won't believe him. If the husband later comes, it could be won't even believe him. Could be
because he changed his
could
mind.
Change his mind, right? Could be changing his mind. And if Itaka never gave reshus, then that's going to be fireworks in their house that night. As there was a collector who once knocks on the door opens, a man opens the door, he looks completely disheveled, his hair is everywhere, his shirt is torn open, and the collector says, I'm here to speak to the owner of the house. The guy says, you came at the perfect time, we're settling that right now. Anyhow, but this is the psak of the Noda B'Yehuda, so this is one important rule. If the woman says her husband gave the okay, you don't have to question it. Because the Gemara gives a rule, a person won't sin if they gain nothing. It doesn't make sense that she's willingly lying, and therefore you don't need to do any further verification. Okay, that's one thing. Then we come to number 12. Number 12 is another letter of the Noda B'Yehuda, a very important letter. Also about a woman giving tzedakah. It's in a completely different part of his sefer than number 11. And we go, number 12. This is really fascinating. He says, Michtavai kibalti, I received your letter. Valdvar ashayla sheshol eshtake, the question you asked last year. Isha, there's a woman who knows her husband is a miser. She knows her husband is not giving the amount he's supposed to give. One is supposed to give miser, a tenth. There are those that believe, there's three opinions when it comes to miser, if it's an obligation, if it's a mitzvah, which is a step lower than obligation, or if it's just a custom. Some hold it's just a minhag when it comes to miser for money. Others hold it's a mitzvah from the chachamim. Others hold it's mamish an obligation. How do you work out miser? Is it from the initial revenue, or there's a big debate. Some hold it's even before you take taxes. It's from the original sum. Others believe it's after you pay for all your bills. It's only from mamish to profit. After you pay not just taxes, after you pay for your rent and after you pay for everything, for your tuition and that.
It depends on whether you have a good year or not.
Some say.
There happens to be
10% of the net?
No, some people, 10% of the net.
Have you ever told someone the dollar is 10% from net from schar naki? You ever called it yeah.
Okay, so all right. There happens to be a well-known letter of the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon believes that there's a biblical obligation, or at least rabbinic obligation, but there's an obligation to give a chomish, a fifth. When it says pasoyach tiftach, double expression, one for 1/10, one for the second tenth. When Yaakov said aser asrenu, 2 times meiser, 2/10 is a fifth. The Vilna Gaon wrote a famous letter where he holds that 1/5 you really got to give a chaimish a fifth. It seems like he holds this even biblical. But listen, whatever you can, you can. The more the better. The more the better. The Gemara says one who wants to splurge, don't splurge more than a fifth to tzedakah. But the Alter Rebbe says it doesn't apply now. Back then, they were holy Jews. Now, we have so much to atone for. Just like you ever heard like doctor's bills? Someone needs a huge operation. My policy, you tell the doctor, my policy is I don't spend more than a fifth of my net. They'll send you out. If I can't, you need to do a chaimish. It's not more, but a chaimish.
So you have to do exactly a chaimish.
Yeah.
It doesn't contradict.
Right. So, says the Noda B'Yehuda, Isha sheyadayla shabayla kamson. She knows her husband's a miser. A miser. There was once, I just told the story, someone got lots of booze, but I'll try it here and see what happens. There was a town in Europe where there was a Yid, a miser, never gave tzedakah, and fakert, whenever he lent people tzedakah, he would ask for interest, even from Jews. I mean, the guy had a heart of a rock, of iron. When he died, the Chevra Kadisha wanted an exorbitant sum from his wife, a huge amount of money. So she came to the Rav and she said they're taking advantage. They never asked this amount from anybody. So the Rav summons the Chevra Kadisha. What's going on? So the Chevra Kadisha say like this: everybody else that we buried are only renting plots. Because Mashiach comes, they're all going to get up when the dead arise. This guy was so rotten, he's buying a plot. It's expensive.
Only a Jew.
Yeah. Okay. So number 12. Exactly. So says the Noda Yehuda in number 12, the second line. If a woman knows her husband is a miser by giving tzedakah, he's not giving lefi erkoi, and she does things in the house, she's giving tzedakah according to his wealth. She knows her husband cares. She knows her husband's a miser, but she's getting her hands on some of the money, and she's secretly giving tzedakah. Could be she, she's worried if her husband's such a miser, who knows, She wants brachas for her kids. She wants her house to be a generous house. She knows her husband has a big bank account, she has a card, and she's busy taking money, giving the tzedakah that he should have given. Is it okay to receive? So the difference of this case versus a regular case is a woman wants to give a lot of money and it's not her money. You have to know her husband gave the okay. This is money the husband is obligated to be giving.
But he's not okay with it.
He doesn't want it. The woman's giving, he doesn't want, but he needs to. So the question is, does that legitimize it?
Is the money, the Meister money, is it already konui to the...
Exactly. Is the Meister money you have, are you holding other people's guilt?
Write this whole book.
What if it's not?
Can the ani grab it like on Sunday shir? Can the ani be teifus the Meister? So let's go.
But he's saying Dafke doesn't want it.
He doesn't want.
He's saying he Dafke doesn't want it. Zachin Leila Adam is only if the guy wants it. You don't know if the guy wants it.
You don't know anything. You don't know what the guy's opinion is. And Faked, you have to assume that he's happy.
Right.
Okay. So back to number 12. In number 12, the number 12, we're on the right side, the paragraph that starts with Yafa. Says the Noda Yehuda, Yafa Hayra Malasa. You paskened well, you can't take it. Chas v'sholem, to take it from her, it's gezel gomer, it's complete theft. Bezin could have forced him to give. Yeah. A wife is not the husband's judge. Make sure, take this home. We're going to see, by the way, number 13 is going to argue, so cut number 13 out when you go home. In number 12, the Noda Yehuda says, Mi somes ha'isha l'shofetes. Who made the woman the judge? A woman is puzzled to judge. Cute, right? The woman is cute. The woman's not allowed to be a judge. We had a shir about that. It's on the. He says even Bezdin has no reshus to take without asking. When Bezdin enforces, Bezdin doesn't go to your bank without you knowing and take it from you. No. Bezdin goes to your door. They'll smash your door open, but they'll do it with your knowledge. Rak Maidian, they let him know. Mamashkinin, they take items from him without his consent, but with his knowledge. And they take b'fan of Bal Karcha, but believed without him knowing is Mamash Aganav. So it's almost like he's saying,
What is he going to do?
They're saying Bezdin can only do it taking from him against his will. So for the wife to steal it, stealing. But what if the wife does it in front of his face?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's still a problem because she's not Bezdin. A wife can't be Bezdin. Let's say the wife comes and tells her husband,
Wait a minute, what is he going to do?
She picks up his wallet from his front of his face. She takes $1,000 cash and she says,
"You miser, I'm saving you." What is he going to do?
He'll call her a thief. I'm a miser, you're a thief. I'm a miser, you're a thief. It's a great shidduch. It's a great shidduch. Here's the miser shidduch.
She's not letting
Listen,
not letting
husbands and wives.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right. The charity can't accept it. The charity's not letting
After return.
I have never known a yid not to accept.
Exactly.
It's Gneva. Zayla.
continues the Noda b'Yehuda. But there's a well-known story, Rabbi Akiva and Rab Tarfon. Rab Tarfon was a kohen, but it says he was a bit of a miser. With all due respect to Rab Tarfon, it says he was killy. He had a hard time giving. Rab Tarfon was very wealthy.
That we know from.
Rabbi Tarfon was a kohen. Rab Tarfon was a big scholar. He was very wealthy. He had a hard time parting with his money.
But he gave.
No, so
The miser, he gave.
no, the Gemara says he was killy. He was
Makes sense. He was a
relative.
Hashulchan. Kainim are very generous.
By the way,
It's not their
hello.
money. They give their.
There was once a famine. Rabbi Tarfon married hundreds of women in order they should eat truma.
Really?
Rabbi Tarfon once married hundreds of women he engaged so they could all eat truma. It was a famine.
See that?
Yeah, but it wasn't his, it was truma. Stuff he was given. That's good.
Tell my daughter.
He should have opened. He could have. Rabbi
Your daughter
Tarfon.
can't marry many men.
She wants to marry a kohen, so she can eat truma.
No. You're forcing her to marry a kohen.
Exactly.
Your wife
You
is
tell your
telling
son
you
he should
don't put
marry a lot of
pressure on
women.
her.
Tell your son he should marry a lot of women. All right.
This is a way to marry a
You're right. Wait a minute. You know what your wife says?
1 second, but this was not a it was Misuya.
No, Arison. Rabbi
Arison,
Tarfon
I'm
holds
saying Arison,
Arison
right.
works for
Truma.
truma.
Yeah, okay.
Lady, you want some steak?
It was a famine, and all he was willing to give was his truma. How did he have so much truma for 300 women? Why was everyone giving to
wanted to
him?
give Rabbi Tarfon truma. He was the guy.
And he was a
biggest
kid.
guy in
How was he a
town.
kid
Why?
if he
They
gave
also-
away all
those
his
other
meat?
kainim, they're also-
I know, but he's Rabbi
Truma,
Tarfon.
not meat. Truma.
Apparently.
Elazar ben Azariah?
Truma.
No, Elazar ben Azariah was.
Grains
So
and
that's
stuff.
still.
He
So
was
that's
Yeah,
still.
yeah, but it wasn't his
Nasi. He was the Nasi.
It wasn't his personal money.
Shul was Levi.
So who did
But
what?
Elazar ben
Oh,
Azariah
it's
was
true.
the
It was a
Nasi.
kohen.
So he married a bunch of women and then he divorced them?
Yeah, it was just in order they should
Get the
Elazar ben
opportunity to eat
Azariah.
truma.
Shul was Rabbi Shul ben Levi. He was a Levi. Yeah. Who was the other kind in that story?
means he was a lady?
No, Shul ben Hananya. By Pesach?
Sorry, Pesach.
It was Rabbi Lezer was a kohen. It was a Levi. Lezer was a Levi.
And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah.
Kohen. Asiri
kohen.
Lezer is
He
a
was a
kohen.
kohen.
Sure. Very rich.
Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is also very rich. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was also very rich.
Because he kept
They were
all the
both
geld from
two
picking
kainim,
them
two
in.
levim, and
It
one
was,
ben
it was temporary, just like the Chochmah.
Exactly.
No, there's a whole Rabbi
weren't so
Yochanan
bad.
about them. We once had a shir.
Yeah, what do you want?
Because if you come from Yehuda, from your mother's side, it could be good enough to be a king and
50
things like
years I
that.
get actually a wedding
Because
present.
Hillel himself
Wedding present.
was from Shevet Binyamin. He came from David, from the daughters of
You
David.
made it.
Listen, I only
Taisa
had
says
two
if you come
birthday
from
parties in my life. My bar mitzvah.
Shmuel
Rabbi
was
Yehuda
a kohen,
Hanasi,
right?
the whole family of Hillel are really from Shevet Binyamin. They're from Malchus Beis David, only from
The mother.
Shmuel was a kohen. Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel was a kohen.
2 years.
Right?
Shmuel Hanavi was a Levi from Kairach. Okay, let's go. Fine. So the story is like this. Rabbi Akiva once told Rabbi Tarfon, do you want to invest in some new cities being built? He said, sure. Rabbi Tarfon gave Rabbi Akiva, I think it was 4,000 gold pieces, a lot of money. Rabbi Akiva went and he gave it all to poor people.
Good for him.
So later on, Rabbi Tarfon asked Rabbi Akiva, no, let's go see the new cities being built. So he brought him to the town where all the poor people were, and he showed them all of them. And he took out a tilim, and he reached the pasuk, Pizar Nosan Le'Evyonim, that the person gives out everything to the poor. Rabbi Akiva says, this city's yours. So Tarfon kissed Rabbi Akiva, and he said, you're my teacher in wisdom, and I gave him some compliments. So the question is, how did Rabbi Akiva do that? It's exactly like this woman. Rabbi Akiva knew Rabbi Tarfon was had a hard time parting with the money, so he conned him into an investment, a real estate deal, and to get him to give tzedakah. So that how Rabbi Akiva shechiluk the money of Rabbi Tarfon without his knowledge, he says that's different. Rabbi Akiva knew that if he would do it, Rabbi Tarfon would come around and say thank you. But to Achoy, Rabbi Tarfon would be maskim, and like Itaka was. And the truth is, if Rabbi Tarfon would have been makbid, Rabbi Akiva would have had to go. Rabbi Akiva himself was wealthy; he would have had to pay it from his own funds.
It should have.
Ma'ashenken in this story, the husband's telling the wife, I don't want you to give. Va'afilu masha'ola b'das ma'alos ilahatil meibur. The shayla was there was a minute when a woman was expecting, for the sake of the fetus, to give liten chaluka la'aniyim, to give her coat to the poor, lispalu lavura, that they should daven for her. I don't know if that means that they should actually wear her clothes, or wear her coat from the cold and daven. I don't know, but the last is la pigeon.
She's giving it.
It's a gift. It's a gift. Why not dafka coat? Okay, but there was some meaning that while a woman was pregnant, to give a gift to the poor. And the question, chalukah.
Something that she wore.
Chalukah usually refers to a coat. He says, so maybe this is already this is a normal thing, so the woman could do. Gamze einer nochen. This is not b'chlal refuah. Health, the husband's chayiv to heal the wife. So the woman's allowed to go to the doctor, any doctor, without telling her husband. Her husband can never object. What about this meaning that while she's expecting, this is like a skula. It's not help the poor, they'll daven for you. He says it depends. If the whole family did it, and this was the minig pashat in the whole family, then I could say that the husband's chayiv and you force him.
Then it's refuah.
But even then, she shouldn't do it without telling him. It's stealing. By the fuah, she doesn't have to say.
So it's not refuah mamish.
Even right, it would never be full mamish. It would be enough that you could enforce the husband, coerce him, but not to take without his knowledge. He says a story in Meshech Brachas. Rav Huna had many barrels of wine that turned into vinegar. And his friends came and they tried to tell him, God knows what he's doing, you must have sinned. He says, Shkoyach. He says, that's great comfort. That's wonderful comfort. What did I do wrong exactly? So they told him, Lo yoiv shibshal larisa, you had a contractor, a sharecropper who used to share the crops, either 25%, 50%. You didn't give him his share of branches in the latest season. So he told them that's because the season before he took way more than he was supposed to. So Rav Huna's friends told him, once you have to do with a ganav, you become a ganav yourself. Because he stole from you, you steal from him. And they told him the famous line, Basur gan v'ganoi v'tam atoim. You follow the ganav, you taste it, you become a thief yourself.
That's a Mishnah.
So even though Rav Huna was justified, he was the guy had stolen from him, it still wasn't appropriate to take something from someone, even if you feel you deserve without their knowledge. So how could the woman? He says, "Va'adichas b'zeh is not necessary," and he says this person that argued on you and said the woman's allowed to take the money from the husband is machzik yidei over aveira. He's supporting criminals. Who are the criminals? Those wives who think they're doing. Who know that their husband in a case in a case where the husband is a miser, which obviously doesn't apply over here. In a case where the husband is a miser, the chol dvar of all the words of that rabbi are not even worthy to respond. Divrei batol, it's all a waste of time.
So what's the
who was his name? I don't know. Here's the Shiloh though. The Rebbe finishes. What about the story of David and Abigail, the well-known story? David and his men were running away from Shel, and David's men ended up watching over a field that belonged to a guy called Novel. And David's men happened to guard and protect the field, that it wasn't damaged or thieves didn't come. So David knocks on Novel's door and says, listen, we did you a favor, protected your property, could you do us a favor? We're just asking for some food. It was David's messengers. And Novel pulls the rug from under David. Who does David think he is? I owe him not. He curses David out. He says, I'm not going to give him a thing. When David hears he's so incensed, he wants to kill Novel. Novel's wife, Abigail, she comes to David and she beseeches him to have compassion, and she gives David a big gift from her husband's property. How did she do that? You're going to say that her husband was a miser. Who cares? The Noda Buddha paskin against this other Rav. The Buddha says you can't. A wife has no right to take it without his knowledge. So he asks, that the raya that this other rabbi brought from David and Abigail, kama tshuvas b'davar, many answers. Number one, Abigail atzma bavadai she was certainly allowed to take it to save her husband from death. Yeah, it's death.
How could David take it?
And David, who took it, maybe he deserved it, him and his servants, because of the shmirah that they had protected. Right. They deserved the money. So once it was given to them, it was money that we learned last week on Sunday. There are certain times that the money maybe l'chatchila won't be given to you, but if you deserve it, once you have it, once you're teifus, or once you have it, you can keep it. And al pi din Torah, he took it. The woman shouldn't have taken it, but it was to save her husband's life. So she was allowed to give once David has, allowed to keep it. He says more than that. Maybe it was Abigail's own money. If you give a woman money on condition her husband has no rights to it, then it's completely hers. And b'chlal, more than that, the fact that a wife's handiwork goes to her husband is a takana from the rabbis. When did the rabbis make that rule? Maybe it was after the story of David. Yeah. Maybe the Chacham made that rule later, because it's not biblical. In addition, Noda was very wealthy. The Rambam said the whole thing of small versus big depends on the specific individual. Noda was a miser. He gives another answer. In the end, maybe he loved his wife so much that if his wife gave, he'll say, you know what, he would be okay with it.
She's clearly a smart woman.
Maybe b'chlal, he gave her authority to give whatever gifts she wanted. In other words, there are so many ways to answer that story that you cannot marshal that story and prove from there that if a wife sees her husband isn't fulfilling his duties, she can just start swiping the credit card to give tzedakah. That's the Noda's opinion. There are those that argue, but the Noda says that it's not even worth my time to respond to their claims. So that comes number 13, the Aruch Hashulchan, 100 years after the Yehuda, and he says, I think actually not like the Noda Yehuda. He tainas the woman's allowed to give, in this very case. In number 13, he says like this: V'lachen, if there's a wealthy man who's a kili, v'kamson, is a miser, and the woman's giving tzedakah without him knowing, he says, Vaday she's allowed, Vaday he ba'atzma can't, because she's not his judge. Taka. But let's say the rabbi of the city tells the woman, Shelafi erkoi, that your husband's, according to his wealth, if we would have a strong bezdin, we would force him to give X, Y, Z. We don't have that today. Can you please go? The rabbi of the city can entrust the wife with a mission to covertly go to her husband's funds and get that money that he's not giving. Yichayelitin, like the she that is supposed to give. V'laman, go, why should we be worse off? Because we don't have, back in the day they had a real bezdin, right? The Rabbanim, we mentioned that the Rabbanim in Spain in the 1200s were given ultimate, they were able to kill, they had full rulership. Today, what power does a bezdin have? But because of that, therefore, the guy's not going to give tzedakah. We have to come up with other avenues. We're going to send his wife. Im yesh b'yecholteinu, exactly. To take the tzedakah that is chayiv min dinner, we'll do it. Afal gav, usually when you force, the husband has to know. Like the Noda says, bezdin doesn't come in the middle of the night when he's sleeping. They do it in front of his face. Here it's without his agreement. Mikol makom, since he's chayiv to give this amount, and we don't have the power to force him, so the only way to do it is without him knowing. Back in the day, bezdin had the power to forcefully come to his house and take his money and he's just standing there biting his tongue. Can't do that today. So the only other option, the fallback option, is we go like a snake. We go quietly. And then he says, I saw a big gadol who said you can't do it. He quotes the Noda Yehuda. He says, it must be in Prague in the 1700s was different. It must be b'yomov, the bezdin had strength. When the bezdin has koyach to do it, the wife has no right to do it. When the bezdin doesn't have strength, so then the rabbi of the city entrusts the wife.
Not even necessary.
Mashen came these days. Now this is his theory. There was a big Rav in Eretz Yisrael recently, Rabbi Vosner, who said this is so counterintuitive. What? When bezdin was strong and they have the power to enforce, then the wife's not allowed to go. But now that there's no bezdin, we can't enforce. Now the wife's allowed to go. It doesn't make sense. Our wings are clipped, and not that we're allowed to do things that we weren't allowed to do once upon a time. So here's a problem with this theory of the Aruch Hashulchan. But the Aruch Hashulchan paskins that these days, not like the Noda B'Yehuda, if the only way to get it is to act like a snake, then the rabbi is supposed to tell the woman go.
Give out the money.
So this is another loophole. If somebody's supposed to be giving a certain amount and he doesn't give, right, then the wife's allowed to give. And if you know that the wife is bid $10,000 and this man is millions of dollars behind in Tzedakah, you could take, even if you know he doesn't want. According to the Aruch Hashulchan. Rabbi Vosner says he questions this. He thinks that we should still go like the Noda. So this is a shaila. And we mentioned the other thing with the shaila, if the woman has her own job, that was Aruch Hashulchan in number 10, another shaila. We also saw though that if the woman says, my husband gave me the okay, we believe her. Now we come to number 14. This is from the Maharshal, the great Rav in Lublin in the 1500s, in his Yam Shel Shlomo in the end of Baba Kama. He says the Ra'avon, Rebelezer ben Nosson, the Ra'avon, one of the early Rishonim, writes in his Sefer Tzafnas Pane'ach, these days women are the apetrupas of the husband. He says that women are they run the finances of the home. He's saying this 800 years ago. There's something called an apetrupas. Usually, if God forbid there's orphans, a bezdin will place an apetrupas, an overseer, to look after the estate, sell what needs to be sold, and take care of the orphans.
Because the orphans can't do it themselves.
They're kids when they're kids.
That is assuming the husband can't do it himself.
No, if the husband died.
No, but now they say now that the women are, they're assuming
the
that the husband
Ravon
can't
holds
take care of
these days, 1,000 years ago, 900 years ago, in the medieval times, the husband is working all day, right? The wife manages the house. The wife is managing the fund, she's managing the taxes. She's making all the purchases. Everything. The wife's running the budget. The husband bringing in the money, okay? The wife knows, do they have money to go to Switzerland on vacation? Where they're going to eat out, which restaurants, what they're doing for food and things like that. The wife, she's the one who knows. She's the apotropos. So he says 800, 900 years ago that these days the woman is the financial overseer on the husband's wallet. And therefore she's allowed to give tzedakah where she sees fit. She doesn't need the husband to give the okay. From the moment of marriage, she already has the okay.
This is before the
So therefore, loichin mehen kol davar. You could buy anything from them, right? Because the Mishnah, remember, said, it depends what they're selling. Now, no, anything. V'chein mekablim en tzedakah, even a davar merubah. So the Ravon says that the whole din we learned in the beginning of the shir, the whole thing we're discussing, is not applicable 900 years ago. The Maharshal's quoting this 500 years ago. Says the Maharshal, mikol mokum, to me it seems, it all depends on the marriage. It depends on the circumstance of that particular couple.
So again, we look at the circumstance. Like this.
In some families, the wife taka is at the head of all the finances. In others, it's the other way around. The wife takes care of the kids. She'll cook the food. She'll buy the food blindly. But it's the husband who's really making all the cheshbonos. So says the Maharshal, it really depends. Sometimes the wife's main work is within the house, taking care of the house itself, not on expenses outside the home. She's not an apotropos to give $100,000 to tzedakah. And even if she is an apotropos, nonetheless, maybe the husband only permits her to spend on things the house needs. Even if a woman is considered that she runs the finances, who said it means to run the finances in all areas? So if she one day has a strange dream, she wants to give $1 million to her third cousin who's starting up a business, it doesn't apply all over the board. He says it's only for tzarchei bayis. And even if the husband allows for her to buy and to sell to make a profit, but stam to give stock and money he'll never see again, she needs rishus. Unless she's an eishes chaya. What does that mean? What if her husband's learning all day in kollel? And she's mechaya es baila? He says a case like this. Imagine in Lakewood you have people sitting in kollel.
Her father's paying for it anyway.
I just met a guy a Litvish guy from Lakewood. I've known him for a few years now. His hair is already white and everything. I asked him, do you teach at all? He says, no, I'm still learning. He's not even holding by teaching, he's still learning. He's been in Kollel 40 years, he's still learning. He's still a student. There's a whole different, the Rebbe's perspective on Kollels was to go for amount of time, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The Rebbe writes very sharp that if somebody wants to spend 20 years in Kollel, the justification has to be that the world will benefit from that, direct benefit, not some spiritual benefit. I'm learning here, and either you'll become a Rav, or you'll become a Rosh Hashiv. In other words, it has to be that people will directly benefit from your learning. Otherwise, you should teach. You should teach. You should teach. You got to learn too. You got to learn. Boy, you got to learn. But to lock yourself up in Kollel all day when no one gets any benefit for years, for decades, it's not right. Not anymore. Unless the Rebbe said a few people, because that if they're going to be a Rav, or they're going to be specialized in certain areas that they need to dedicate that amount of time, fine. But across the board, Kollel was a 1, 2 year, 3 year thing. When I was in Kollel, we never got a penny, so after 9 months, couldn't stay there anymore. They say in Lakewood they want to uproot Rabbeinu Gershom's rule of polygamy. You can't marry more than one wife. Because they say it's hard to live off one salary.
Yeah.
That's the choice.
But you know, there's
Anyhow,
only one conclusion to all this, and the
Let's worry about one
meeting is that women are superior to men.
I don't go like Lakewood.
That's what you learn from this.
we had a whole shir 2 weeks ago about the superiority of women over men. Anyhow,
They had their time.
so says the Maharshal, let's say she's making the only salary, her husband's sitting and learning. So then, even if what if she wants to give a huge amount to Tzedakah? Then her husband should zip it. She doesn't need his rishus. The chutzpah. He says, the oz, even a sach meruba, mestame, he'll allow her, and it's a v'nichale, it's good for him to allow, because if it's going to be meiche, if he's going to say you can't give it, she'll say, all right, start making your own money. Yeah. So if he receives from her, then she doesn't have to ask his. But if she's receiving from him, right, then even if she does make her own money, we learned that really it's owned by him. And even according to the Ravon, that the woman is running the household, the runnings of the household, the financial, says the Maharshal, well, wait a second, it depends on the family. You have to know what right did the husband give her. Is it only on things inside the home or things outside the home? Did he allow her to buy and sell or even give tzedakah? Even tzedakah, who said it's a huge amount? You have to find these things out. But he says, if she's the breadwinner and he's learning, then you don't have to find out. You can assume he allows. So that's another heter. The fact that the women, the Ravon though seems to say, the Maharshal is mitigating, he's qualifying the blanket statement of the Ravon. The Ravon though said women are apotropos of the husbands. Of the money. In fact, the Aruch Hashulchan, I don't have it on the paper, but he brings this Ravon without the qualifications of the Maharshal. If you take the Ravon the way it is, the woman's in charge of the finances, and that's it. The Gemara says you can't take. That was then. Things changed between 2,000 years ago and 1,000 years ago. And now, even more so, maybe women are involved.
Maybe. You just say maybe.
So what we have so far is...
Your homework is to learn this with your wife.
If a woman...
Oh, you will learn that with my
It'll be on Spotify.
Let's just make a quick sikkum.
Yeah.
If you're selling aliyahs in the shul and the biddings... So if a woman bids...
my hearing is gone now.
If she's bidding $50 for something, then no question, it's a dover mu'at. Unless you hear the husband in the men's section saying, put your hand down, because we saw the Shulchan Aruch says if you hear the husband screaming from the back, it doesn't help. If it's going up, if she's buying Mafta Yaina for $50,000, then even if you know that she has the money and she could swipe the credit card or write a check, the problems are like this. It's a door from Meruba, from the Gemara and the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. It's very clear you can't take it. However, this is the big however. First of all, if she says that my husband gave me the okay, the Noda do the paskins that you accept it, you don't have to verify.
For sure that Avon also.
And that all the place can bring that exact that. Now, if the husband later comes and says that he never verified, the poskim don't say. They don't. I would assume maybe you don't believe him. Maybe you don't believe him. Right. Right. But at least, definitely before he says that, we have no need to verify. You could take the woman's word for it. Okay.
And take her money.
But assuming the woman doesn't say that, she just says on her own, and so the loopholes that we have are the following. We saw first of all that if this woman actually has a job, nothing to do with the household, she has a skill and she's working in her own time, and she makes her own salary. So we saw it's a machloikas, 50-50 if it's her money or her husband's. And the Aruch Hashulchan said that when it comes to tzedakah, you're allowed to rely on those opinions that say it's hers, you could take it. So if you happen to know that that woman who stuck her hand happens to have her own business and everything, and it's not infringing of her household duties, then you're allowed to rely on those that say it's her money and take it. Another thing, what if we know that her husband, a well-to-do fellow, he never gives tzedakah, so he's hundreds of thousands of dollars behind in tzedakah, and back in the day a bezdin would have gone and taken collateral from him. Now we don't have that. This woman wants to be his judge, I'm going to fix him big time, right? So we have a debate. There was some Rav 300 years ago who said she can. The Noda Yehuda vehemently disagrees. But the Aruch Hashulchan in number 13 said no. He thinks that today, since Bezdin can't do it, the only thing is to go stealthily. We send the wife in because it's money really that he owes, and therefore she can give him and the receivers can accept. I mentioned that some Rabbanim today question the Aruch Hashulchan, and so that remains a bit of an issue. Can you rely on that? The other thing is the Ra'avon. The Ra'avon who said that the whole Gemara is talking 2,000 years ago, and these days the women are the unofficially appointed trustees over the household funds, and he seemed to give a blanket statement that therefore the woman can give whatever she wants. She's in charge. She has the right. She can send the money whatever direction she sees fit. The Aruch Hashulchan quotes the Ramban, take it to go. If you actually look in the Yam Shel Shlomo, which we did, we see he qualified. Not so simple. It depends on the marriage. It depends on the dynamics. It's not so simple. You can rely on that. There happens to be one more thing. There was a big Rav in Switzerland, the Chelkas Yaakov, a big Rav not too long ago. He says like this: if a woman went to a fundraising event and her husband knows that she went, the very fact he didn't protest for her to go means he's already prepared that her husband, he knows that his wife might be offering big, and whatever it is he accepts. So in your case, if the husband knows that the wife came to Shul on bidding day for the aliyahs, the very fact that, now it could be he told her in the house, we don't know what happened in the house, maybe he told her not to go.
Yeah,
but you assume that if she's there, you say, right.
You didn't come and you didn't protest.
Right, so he says the very fact, if it's a woman's only event, but he says that if the husband would have known, either there was an invitation sent out, there were messages, if the husband was in the know, often women go to events, husbands have no idea where they are, right? But if we can prove that he was in the know, that's tantamount to his agreement that she goes. Then you wonder, what if she bid $5 million? I mean, even if a husband knows that his wife's going to bid, but Vifel Ashir, how much? Now, what if she had a few drinks and she? It's a hard heter to rely on. The Ravon's heter is better. She has, full.
There's no limit.
According to even Dover Meruba, there's no limits. There's no limits.
What do you say about the Maharshal? There's a Maharshal.
The Yam Shel Shlomo. This is the Maharshal, the Yam Shel Shlomo. Anyhow, so the Chelkas Yankov's heter that he gives would, I don't know. The husband knows the wife's going. He knows she's going to bid. But does that mean that he?
Big event. It was on all WhatsApp groups.
So she'll bid 360. She'll offer 360. What if
We're inviting you.
What if she gives $360,000? Whoa, like way over. I don't know. Maybe the fact that he let her go, all bets are off. Once she's in, she's in.
You should have known.
Anyhow, so the fact is that the Eibishter, when he told Moshe, he said, tell the men. The women not so posh. So what did the women do? They said, we're going to give. They brought their husbands with them to make sure they gave the okay.
What was the last?
That was 15.
Oh, 15. 15 is, there was a woman who told her husband that I have relatives that are poor. I need you to support them. The collector comes to a guy's house, a wealthy man. He says that there's a guy down the street extremely poor, help him out. So the Gvir says, I have a mother, she's in some broken home somewhere. I have a brother, can't marry off his kids.
Comes to them later on and they say, yeah.
They've
I
got
don't help them, I'm going to help you.
So the question is, there's a place called the Maharam Minsk. The Maharam Minsk paskins that if the husband is wealthy and it's the wife's relatives that need help, the husband can't protest. She has the right to demand from her husband, and she could take from her husband to help her relatives. So the Aruch Hashulchan asks, V'adover Tamua, how could she force that he gives money to her relatives? What's this all about? And then he says, but based on what I say in Sif Yud Gimel will be understood. Sif Yud Gimel is what he says in number 13. No, it's the Maharam Minsk. He says, based on the fact, he said, it depends if the husband was, if he's given everything that he's needed to give for tzedakah, is above and beyond, then the wife can't force him to give more from her relatives. He's already maxed out. But if Taka, he's below that, then she could
first
to second. Rabbi, that all depends on how many bedrooms are in the house. How many bedrooms are in the house? Because